Commander Throck Val stood before his class of elite Zentari cadets, his 4 arms crossed in what he considered his most intimidating pose. The lecture hall buzzed with the usual pre-class chatter, but today was special. Attention, future warriors of the Zentari Empire. His voice boomed across the polished metal chamber. Today we have the distinct pleasure of welcoming our first Deathworlder exchange student. The snickering started immediately. Nick's era in the front row actually snorted, which was quite an achievement considering Zentari respiratory systems. Throck Val allowed himself a small grin. These cadets had never seen a human before, and frankly, neither had he until the transport shuttle arrived this morning. Now, before you laugh yourselves into molt shock, Throck Val continued, his tone dripping with barely contained amusement, let me explain what we're dealing with. Humans come from a Class 12 death world called Earth. Yes, you heard correctly. Class 12. That's the same classification as a Vorthan acid storm planet. Cadet Brix Han raised one of his massive hands. Sir, with respect, how does something that small survive on a Class 12 world? Throck Val's grin widened. Excellent question, Brix Han. The answer is, well, nobody really knows. They just do. Like cockroaches, but with opposable thumbs and an inexplicable fondness for fermented beverages. The door chimed, and every head turned to see their new classmate enter. Maya Blackwood stepped into the lecture hall, and the silence was profound. She stood maybe 5.5 feet tall, barely reaching the chest plates of the smallest Zentari cadets. Her skin was that peculiar pinkish-brown color that marked her as one of Earth's dominant species, and her hair was tied back in what Throck Val's briefing materials had called a ponytail. How quaint. Well, Throck Val announced, his voice carrying just enough volume to make sure everyone heard, speak of the Deathworlder, and she appears. Cadets, meet Maya Blackwood, survivor of the Third Rock from Seoul. Maya gave a small wave that somehow managed to look both friendly and slightly irritated. Morning, everyone. Nice to meet you all. The accent was interesting. Throck Val had expected something more primitive, more guttural. Instead, her voice was clear, confident, and completely unimpressed by the room full of 8-foot-tall warrior trainees staring at her. Now then, Throck Val said, savoring the moment, let's see where to place our little human friend. Squad Alpha? No, they're far too advanced. Squad Beta? Perhaps too challenging. His pause was theatrical perfection. Ah, yes, Squad Gamma it is. The collective groan from the back corner was music to his ears. Squad Gamma, the unit for cadets who couldn't quite cut it with the elite squads. The misfits, the troublemakers, the ones who asked too many questions or took too many creative liberties with standard protocol. Perfect, Maya said dryly, shouldering her gear bag. I love a challenge. Commander Throck Val couldn't wait to see how long the little Deathworlder would last. 2 hours later, Squad Gamma stood in the prep chamber outside Training Complex 7, and the tension was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Cadet Quintar, all 8.5 feet of him, loomed over the tactical display like a mountain with anger management issues. This is absolutely perfect, he growled, his mandibles clicking in frustration. Operation Nightfall. The scenario that has a 93% failure rate among advanced squads, and they give it to us because we have, he gestured dramatically at Maya, cargo. Cadet Zell Moth, slightly shorter but twice as broad, nodded his massive head in agreement. Urban combat simulation. 47 enemy hostiles with superior positions, advanced weaponry, and air support. Meanwhile, we get 4 squad members and a human who probably can't even lift a standard pulse rifle. Maya looked up from checking her gear. Actually, I can lift it just fine. I'm more concerned about whether you 3 can handle the thinking part of this operation. The silence that followed was spectacular. Brix Han, who had been quietly studying the mission parameters, actually stopped mid-breath. His jaw hung open like a cargo bay door. Excuse me? Quintar's voice carried enough menace to intimidate a combat mech. Did the little Deathworlder just question our tactical abilities? Well, Maya said, adjusting her helmet with infuriating calm. Looking at your mission history, Squad Gamma has failed this scenario 6 times. 6 times. Maybe it's time to try something different than charge forward and hope for the best. Zelmoth laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Oh, this is rich. And what would you suggest, human? Perhaps we should ask the enemies nicely to surrender? Maya pulled up the holographic display and pointed to several key positions. Actually, I was thinking we could use the maintenance tunnels here, create a diversion at the east checkpoint and flank them through the industrial sector. Standard Zentari doctrine says never retreat, but sometimes tactical withdrawal can set up better positioning for. Enough. Quintar slammed his fist on the tactical table. We are Zentari warriors, not scurrying tunnel rats. We fight with honor, not with human trickery. The exercise began 30 seconds later, and Maya's suggestions were promptly ignored. Squad Gamma charged into the urban simulation with all the subtlety of a meteor strike, following standard Zentari assault protocols, which worked brilliantly if your goal was to walk directly into a carefully planned ambush. The first plasma bolts lit up the artificial street like a deadly light show. Quintar took cover behind a concrete barrier and returned fire with mechanical precision. Zelmoth flanked left, exactly as doctrine demanded. Brixhan provided covering fire from the rear position. Maya tried to suggest an alternate route, right up until 3 plasma rounds caught her center mass and sent her sprawling behind a burned-out vehicle. The training rounds were set to non-lethal, but by the 6 hells of Zentari Prime they hurt. Maya lay there for a moment, her chest feeling like someone had used it for target practice with the industrial heating unit. Well, there goes our secret weapon, Quintar muttered over the comm channel, not bothering to lower his voice. Couldn't even last 30 seconds. Should we check on her? Brixhan asked, though he made no move to leave his position. She's probably unconscious, Zelmoth replied, laying down suppressing fire. Humans are fragile. Let's finish this mission properly, without dead weight slowing us down. Maya listened to their chatter and smiled grimly. Dead weight, were she? Time to show these overgrown lizards what a human could do when properly motivated. But what happened next would have been medically impossible for any Zentari cadet. Maya Blackwood sat up, shook her head to clear the ringing in her ears, and started taking inventory of her situation. 3 plasma hits to the chest? Check. Burning pain that felt like someone had branded her with a Vorthan heat stick? Double check. Unconscious and out of the fight like any sensible person would be? Not even close. Okay, she muttered to herself, checking her gear while staying low behind the wrecked vehicle. Standard frontal assault isn't working. What a surprise. The sarcasm practically dripped from her voice as she watched her squadmates continue their textbook approach to getting themselves thoroughly outgunned. While Quintar, Zelmoth, and Brixhan followed their rigid military doctrine like it was carved in sacred stone, Maya started doing something no Zentari had ever thought to do in this scenario. She began studying the training facility itself. The holographic urban environment was impressive, she had to admit. Realistic building textures, authentic street layouts, even simulated weather effects. But it was still a simulation, which meant it had rules, limitations, and she grinned as she spotted its structural vulnerabilities that the designers probably never intended. There, she whispered, pointing at a section where the enemy stronghold met the main power distribution hub. The support beam placement is all wrong for a real building. They prioritized visual aesthetics over structural integrity. Most cadets would have continued following the mission parameters, trying to breach the heavily fortified main entrance like good little soldiers. Maya, however, started looking around for anything she could use to exploit this weakness. The training ground was littered with debris, broken concrete barriers, twisted metal supports, even a few damaged training weapons. Is the human moving? Brixhan's voice crackled over the comm, confusion evident even through the static. Quintar glanced back and saw Maya crawling between cover positions. Probably delirious from the plasma hits. Just ignore her and focus on the mission. Ignore her. Perfect. Maya had always done her best work when people underestimated her. She started with the damaged pulse rifle near her position. The weapon was marked as non-functional by the simulation, but Maya noticed the power cell was still intact. A little creative rewiring, some improvised components from the scattered debris and… "Well, hello there," she said softly, holding up her newly created electromagnetic pulse device. It wasn't pretty, it probably violated 17 safety regulations, and it definitely wasn't in any Zentari technical manual. But it would work. Meanwhile, her squadmates continued their methodical assault on the enemy positions, making exactly zero progress and taking heavy simulated fire. Their tactical chatter was a masterpiece of frustrated military jargon. "Enemy positions are too well fortified," Zelmoth reported. "We need heavier weapons." "Negative on heavy weapons," Quintar replied. "This is a stealth infiltration exercise. We work with what we have." "Then we're stuck," Brixhan concluded with the sort of fatalistic acceptance that made Maya want to shake him. "Stuck, right." Maya looked at her improvised EMP device, then at the structural weakness she'd identified, then at the maintenance access panel that every Zentari cadet had been trained to ignore because it wasn't part of proper military protocol. "Time for some human trickery," she said, and started moving. What followed was unlike anything the training facility's AI had been programmed to handle. Instead of approaching the enemy stronghold directly, Maya used the maintenance tunnels she'd suggested earlier. Instead of engaging the 47 hostiles in direct combat, she bypassed them entirely. And instead of trying to breach the impenetrable fortress through its heavily defended entrance, she went after its power supply. The EMP device worked beautifully. One carefully placed electromagnetic pulse, and suddenly the enemy's advanced weaponry and air support became very expensive paperweights. The structural weakness she'd spotted? A few well-placed charges from salvaged training equipment, and the entire eastern wall of the stronghold developed a brand-new door-sized opening. What in the name of the 7 moons was that? Quintar's voice nearly broke as explosions echoed through the simulation. "Impossible," Zelmoth breathed, staring at his tactical display. The enemy positions just went dark. All of them. Brixhan was scanning the area frantically. "I'm reading massive structural damage to the target building." "How is that even possible?" Through their comm system came a cheerful voice. "Hey guys, I think I found a back door." "You might want to hurry though. I can't hold this position forever." It was Maya. The human they'd assumed was unconscious. The dead weight they'd written off. The Deathworlder who had just accomplished what 6 previous Zentari squads had failed to do. And she sounded like she was having the time of her life. "Somebody," Quintar said slowly, "please explain to me what just happened." From her position inside the enemy stronghold, Maya's reply was pure, undiluted satisfaction. "Human trickery, boys. Human trickery." Back in the observation deck, Commander Throck Val was having what humans might call a moment. He stood frozen before the main tactical display, his 4 eyes focused on readings that made absolutely no sense according to everything he knew about military science, physics, and basic common sense. Replay that sequence, he ordered his aide, Lieutenant Vectar, the part where the human did whatever she just did. The holographic display rewound to show Maya's assault on the stronghold's eastern wall. Throck Val watched her improvised EMP device disable the enemy's systems, saw the precisely placed charges that exploited the structural weakness, and witnessed the resulting breach that gave Squad Gamma their first real tactical advantage in 7 attempts at this scenario. "Sir," Vectar said carefully, "the tactical computers are registering this as an impossible outcome. They're requesting a system diagnostic." "The computers can get in line," Throck Val muttered. "I need a diagnostic too." But Maya wasn't finished. Oh no, the little Deathworlder was just getting started. Having secured the eastern approach, Maya now faced a problem that had stumped military engineers for centuries: the command center door. This wasn't some flimsy civilian barrier. This was a genuine piece of Zentari military hardware. Combat-grade titanium steel composite, electronically sealed, designed to withstand direct hits from heavy plasma artillery. The manufacturer's specifications clearly stated it was indestructible under normal combat conditions. Maya studied the door for approximately 15 seconds. Then she started looking around for tools. What is she doing now? Quintar's voice carried over the comm as he and the rest of Squad Gamma finally caught up to her position. I think, Maya said, testing the weight of a twisted metal beam from the structural debris, I'm going to open this door. Zelmoth looked at the reinforced barrier and then at the relatively tiny human holding a piece of scrap metal. Maya, that door is rated to withstand Class 7 explosive charges. What exactly do you think you're going to accomplish with construction debris? Physics, Maya replied, wedging the metal beam against the door frame and testing different leverage points. Wonderful, reliable physics. In the observation deck, Throk Val leaned forward. What is she doing? Someone tell me what the human is doing. Lieutenant Vicaire consulted his display. Sir, she appears to be attempting to manually force the door open, using leverage and a mechanical advantage. That's not possible, Throk Val said flatly. That door is designed to. His words were cut off by a groaning sound that echoed through the training facility. On the main display, Maya had positioned her improvised lever against the door frame, found what appeared to be the optimal fulcrum point, and was now applying steady, sustained pressure. That's not possible, he repeated, but with less conviction. Maya's approach was completely alien to Zentari thinking. Where they would use technology, explosives, or advanced tools, she was using basic mechanical principles that predated spaceflight by millennia. She'd found the door's weak point, not in its armor or electronics, but in its mounting system, and was exploiting it with nothing more than leverage, determination, and what appeared to be an unhealthy amount of stubbornness. Come on, she grunted, throwing her full weight behind the lever. You overgrown piece of military hardware. The door frame started to buckle. That's not possible. Throk Val's aide echoed his commander's disbelief as stress fractures appeared around the door's mounting points. Maya adjusted her grip, found better footing, and applied more pressure. Her technique was crude by Zentari standards, but it was working. The door, designed to resist high-tech military assault, it had never been tested against the sheer bloody-minded persistence of a determined human with a lever and an attitude problem. Maya, Brixhan said weakly, doors aren't supposed to do that. This one is, Maya replied through gritted teeth, because I'm asking it nicely. With a sound like a small starship crashing, the entire door assembly gave way. Not just the locking mechanism, not just the electronic seals, but the actual door, frame and all, separated from the wall and crashed to the floor with a resounding clang that shook the entire training facility. The silence that followed was profound. That, said Quintar slowly, is not possible. And yet, Maya said, dusting off her hands and stepping through the new opening, here we are. In the observation deck, every instructor, technician, and cadet was staring at the displays in complete bewilderment. The computer systems were flashing error messages, trying to process how a Class 7 security door had been manually removed by a single individual using improvised tools. Sir, Lieutenant Vectar said in a very small voice, Squad Gamma has just secured the command center. Mission complete? Commander Throk Val looked at the tactical display showing Maya's squad methodically capturing the remaining objectives. Their path cleared by the human's impossible door-opening technique. The impossible scenario that had defeated 6 previous squads was being completed by the rejects of Squad Gamma, and led by a Deathworlder who apparently considered the laws of physics more like friendly suggestions. Log this exercise as anomalous results, he said finally. And somebody get me the human service record. All of it. Yeah. From the training facility floor, Maya's voice came over the comm. Command center secured, boys. Anyone want to explain to me why you all look like you've seen a ghost? Throk Val stared at the display and realized that maybe, just maybe, they'd been thinking about Deathworlders all wrong. 3 hours later, Commander Throckval sat in his office reviewing the training footage for the 17th time, and it still made about as much sense as a Vorthan poetry recital. Squad Gamma had achieved a perfect mission completion score. Squad Gamma, the unit that couldn't successfully order lunch without causing an interdimensional incident. A soft chime announced visitors, and Maya Blackwood entered with the 3 Zentari cadets trailing behind her like oversized, confused puppies. Quinn Tar, Zell Moth, and Brixhan looked like they'd witnessed the fundamental laws of the universe having a nervous breakdown, which Throckval supposed they had. "Commander," Maya said, settling into the chair across from his desk with the casual confidence of someone who hadn't just redefined the impossible. "You wanted to see us?" Throckval gestured at the holographic display showing the mission replay. "I want you to explain to me how you did that." He waved vaguely at the screen where Maya was systematically dismantling every assumption the Zentari military had about warfare. Maya glanced at the footage and shrugged. "Which part?" "The EMP device, the structural analysis, or the door thing?" "All of it." Quinn Tar burst out, his usual composure completely shattered. "Humans aren't supposed to be able to do any of that. You took 3 plasma hits and kept fighting. You built a functional EMP device from broken training equipment. You tore a military-grade door off its hinges with a piece of scrap metal. Also," Brixhan added in a voice that suggested his worldview had taken several critical hits, "you did it all while making it look easy?" Maya considered this. "Okay, first question, what did you think Deathworlder meant?" The 3 Zentari cadets exchanged glances. Zelmoth spoke first. "We assumed it meant you were durable? Hard to kill?" "Resilient," Quinn Tar added. "Like a particularly tough piece of equipment." Maya laughed, and the sound was equal parts amusement and exasperation. "Oh, you sweet, sheltered space lizards. Deathworlder doesn't mean we're hard to kill. It means we come from a place that's been trying to kill us for millions of years, and we got really, really good at not letting it." Commander Throckval leaned forward. "Explain." "Earth, even," Maya said, settling back in her chair, "is what you might call an aggressively hostile environment. We have predators that can crush starship hulls, weather systems that make Zentari hurricanes look like gentle breezes, and diseases that have been playing evolutionary arms races with us since before your species discovered fire." She gestured at the footage. "Those plasma hits? Painful, sure, but pain is just information. My ancestors got trampled by 6-ton mammals, struck by lightning, attacked by creatures with toxins that could kill a Zentari in seconds, and somehow lived long enough to reproduce. We evolved to keep functioning under conditions that would shut down most species." Brixhan's mandibles clicked nervously. "And the improvisation?" "Ah, that." Maya's grin was predatory. "See, when everything on your planet is trying to kill you, you learn to be creative. You use what's available, adapt to changing circumstances, and think outside the box, because thinking inside the box gets you eaten by something with very large teeth." She pointed at the door footage. "Your door was designed to resist advanced technology, right? High-energy weapons, explosive charges, sophisticated cutting tools. But nobody thought to reinforce it against basic mechanical advantage, because who would be primitive enough to try that approach?" "Humans," Throckval said slowly. "Humans would try that approach." "Exactly. We've been using levers and applied force since before we had written language. It's not primitive, it's foundational. While you're thinking about energy weapons and plasma charges, I'm thinking about stress points and mechanical advantage." Quinn Tar was staring at Maya like she'd just explained how to fold space-time with a paperclip. Could you teach us these techniques?" Maya's eyebrows rose. "You want to learn human tactics?" "The human tactics that just solved an impossible scenario," Zelmoth said eagerly. "Yes, absolutely." "Please," Brixhan added. "Our standard approaches clearly have some limitations." Maya looked at Commander Throckval, who was reviewing his notes with the expression of someone recalculating his entire understanding of military science. "Commander, any objections to me corrupting your cadets with human thinking?" Throk Val looked up from his files, which contained increasingly alarming details about human military history. Wars fought with primitive weapons against overwhelming odds. Victories achieved through tactics so unconventional they bordered on insane. A species that treated impossible as a personal challenge. Miss Blackwood, he said carefully, I'm beginning to think that human thinking might be exactly what this academy needs. Maya's smile was sharp enough to cut through starship armor. Excellent. Class starts tomorrow. Hope you boys are ready to have your minds properly blown. Outside his office window, Throk Val could see other cadets gathering around Squad Gamma, asking excited questions about the morning's exercise. Word was spreading fast about the human who had redefined the possible. He had a feeling the Zentari Military Academy was about to become a very interesting place. One more question, he called as the group reached the door. Are all humans like you? Maya paused, her hand on the door frame that had remained properly attached to the wall. Commander, I'm considered pretty average by human standards. The silence that followed was profound and deeply concerning. 2 weeks later, Commander Throk Val stood in the advanced training facility watching Squad Gamma execute what could only be described as tactical artistry. Maya had taken her 3 former skeptics and transformed them into something that resembled competent soldiers, assuming competent soldiers typically solved problems by completely ignoring established protocol. Brix Han, stop overthinking it, Maya called out as the massive Zentari cadet tried to follow standard breach procedures. The maintenance shaft is right there. Use it. But Regulation 17 Alpha clearly states Brix Han began. Regulation 17 Alpha was written by people who never had to fight for their lives against a pack of hungry wolves, Maya interrupted. Sometimes the best way forward is the way nobody expects. Throk Val watched as Brix Han abandoned doctrine, slipped through the maintenance access, and successfully flanked the enemy position. Squad Gamma's success rate had improved by 300% since Maya took unofficial leadership. Other instructors were requesting to observe her methods, and several squads had formally petitioned to train with the human approach. His communicator chimed with an incoming priority message from High Command. Admiral Keth Moore appeared on the holographic display, his expression serious. Commander Throk Val, I've reviewed your report on the human exchange student. Are you seriously recommending that we restructure our entire military exchange program based on the actions of one Deathworlder? With respect, Admiral, I'm recommending that we stop treating human exchange students as curiosities and start treating them as strategic assets, Throk Val replied. Miss Blackwood has single-handedly revolutionized our tactical thinking. Her methods are unconventional, effective, and completely unpredictable by enemy forces. On the training floor, Maya was now teaching Quintar how to improvise weapons from standard equipment. The results were both impressive and slightly terrifying. Furthermore, Throk Val continued, I believe joint human-Zentari operations could prove invaluable. Their adaptive thinking combined with our technological capabilities could create tactical advantages we've never considered. Admiral Keth Moore considered this. Very well. I'm authorizing expansion of the human exchange program. We'll be sending more Deathworlders to your facility. As the communication ended, Throk Val heard Maya's voice carry across the training floor. Not bad, Quintar, but next time try thinking less about what the weapon is supposed to do and more about what you need it to do. She glanced up at the observation deck and gave Throk Val a casual wave. Hey, Commander, your superior Zentari technology is great and all, but have you ever considered that maybe, just maybe, sometimes the old ways work better? Throk Val smiled despite himself. The Zentari Military Academy was about to get very interesting indeed. And somewhere in the back of his mind he wondered what would happen when an entire unit of humans arrived for training. The universe, he suspected, was about to become a much more unpredictable place.